where there's communism and oppression, and to work at this airport. They're as afraid here as they are back in their home country.
Basically, we do the dirty job for the airlines because we don't have a very high level education.
Tonight at 7, MIA's Forgotten Workers. CBS Miami spent weeks interviewing workers and combing through records, revealing troubling allegations of mistreatment, intimidation, and what some believe is a climate of fear that prevents workers from speaking out.
Our investigation focused on one company in particular, Yulin America, and CBS Sports' Jim DeFede is here to tell us more about this investigation. Jim.
Thank you very much, guys. All right, Yulin employs more than 2,000 workers at MIA, many of them recent immigrants. And so in this city defined by immigration, this is a story of how some of those Yulin workers believe they are being exploited in the community they now call home. Every year, more than 45 million passengers travel through Miami International Airport. No other entity in the state of Florida produces more revenue than MIA. Not even Disney World can touch the $31 billion the airport generates a year. But many airport workers do not share in that wealth. Just beyond those newly remodeled steel and glass terminals, thousands of workers toil under extreme conditions.
Sometimes I feel that they think that we are machines. I'm not human.
Esteban is a ramp worker for a company called Yulin America. He loads and unloads bags from the plane's belly and hauls as many as 300 bags a day, with each bag often weighing between 70 and 90 pounds.
This is the schedule.
The 60-year-old Cuban immigrant shows me the schedule from the day before, where he claimed to have worked from 1 p.m. to 6:30.
When we finish one plane, there is another waiting for us. We don't have time even to drink water.
You work for 5.5 hours without any break.
Any break.
In addition to his schedule, Esteban shows us how he usually brings a bottle of water with him at the beginning of the day.
It's not enough.
Temperatures on the tarmac can easily reach 100 degrees, especially when combined with the heat of the engines.
Very, very hot. Extremely hot. And not only outside, inside the plane, is very, very hot.
Workers can become dizzy or lightheaded. Some have even fainted. Many of the Yulin employees CBS Miami interviewed complain they did not have easy or reliable access to water.
I think that it's not human.
In November 2018, Miami-Dade Aviation Director Lester Sola received this letter detailing allegations that Yulin workers were being mistreated. In response, county officials asked Yulin to investigate itself in order to determine if the company did anything wrong. On February 5, 2019, Yulin responded to Sola, saying that after conducting its own internal review, it had concluded many of the complaints by workers were not valid. Easy access to drinking water is not concern to our employee group, a Yulin official wrote. We have implemented a process consisting of a renovated golf cart with coolers, water, Gatorade, to ensure ramp employees are hydrated at all times. Similarly, we can confirm that employees working either on the ramp or cabin take their breaks on a daily basis. Workers, however, stand by their claims, saying they have never seen a Yulin water or Gatorade golf cart, and they maintain that often their only break is at the end of their shift, after working 7 or 8 hours straight. Airlines contract with Yulin America to provide an array of services at airports up and down the East Coast, including Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Washington, D.C., and New York. At MIA, American Airlines hires Yulin to clean the cabins between flights. Delta uses Yulin employees for loading and unloading baggage. Yulin also provides various airline wheelchair and customer service representatives. Reached by phone at the company's headquarters in Miami, the CEO of Yulin America, Xavier Rebel, declined a request for an interview. I'm not the right person to discuss this with you, he said. I'm the CEO of the company. Asked about the workers' complaints, he said, I believe it is false. Rebel, who became CEO a year ago, referred CBS Miami to Yulin America's parent company, Grupo Yulin. Based in Spain, Grupo Yulin also declined to respond to questions, stating in an email, we are not going to make any statements about this. Yulin employees we spoke to describe a culture of fear and intimidation within the company. Several employees would speak only if their identities were hidden.
La razón es porque si saben quién yo soy, no va a tardar ni una semana que me saquen del aeropuerto. Y yo necesito mi trabajo.
As an airport contractor, Yulin is required to pay their workers between $14 and $16 an hour under the county's living wage ordinance. And while the workers say that may seem like enough, they claim the company limits the number of hours they work to keep them from receiving benefits. They are not provided sick days or vacation time. Helene O'Brien is the Florida director of the Service Employees International Union, Local 32BJ, which is trying to organize the 2,000 Yulin workers at MIA.
If the people who are cleaning your plane, are coughing and ill, and they can't take a day off because they'd lose pay, that is concerning.
Do you feel pressure when you're sick to go to work anyway?
Yes, because I live check by check. I need to pay my bills.
A crew of 4 cabin cleaners can be given as little as 10 minutes to clean a plane. They claim that is not enough time. Yulin disagrees, stating, "Our workforce is sufficient to meet and face the demand."
You can find in the blankets blood. You can find people pee in the blankets. You can find Pampers on the floors. So just make it like it look nice and clean. Just the rack and that's it. You're done.
The equipment is another frequent complaint. Workers provided these pictures and videos showing what they say are the inside of Yulin's vans that carry the cabin cleaning crews to the planes. Holes in the floorboards, a roof that pours down on the workers when it rains, a broken door that has to be tied shut with a seatbelt.
Y mantenerla cerrada hasta que lleguemos al vuelo. No trabajan la mayoría de los camiones.
Now, Yulin denies their equipment is unsafe. One of the employees we spoke to, Esteban Barrios, said he asked the company for a list of workplace injuries, but the company has so far refused to provide it.
Jim, one of the complaints that you've been reporting that the workers have is that they're scared, they're scared of their supervisors. Is that justified?
They say that they're scared of speaking out, of complaining, and there is some justification for it. We found at least 2 cases in which the National Labor Relations Board found that Yulin fired employees because of attempting to join the union or talking about joining the union or making complaints about what they were doing. In one case, they were ordered to actually rehire the worker and to post notices saying that they will not interfere with employees' right to try to organize and collective bargain, but Yulin is even moving forward and appealing that decision.
Well, the county commissioner, Eileen Higgins, she toured the airport. As you were saying, a lot of them are scared. I mean, did she find anything? Were they able to speak up with her?
This was what was really fascinating to me, because Eileen Higgins went to the airport in December to see for herself, because she had heard some of these same stories that I had heard. And as she was being led around by some Yulin workers with a county official escorting them as well, so she was proper to be there, she said that when she went to Yulin's break room, all of a sudden one of the supervisors for Yulin stood up, moved towards her, and just started yelling, "There's going to be trouble if this continues." In other words, threatening the commissioner. Wow. And then from then on, she left on wanting to create a scene, and Yulin supervisors followed them around, documenting wherever they went and whoever they spoke to. So it does give you the feel. She says she felt intimidated and threatened. She can only imagine what the workers feel.
She made the point she has every right in the world to be there.
Absolutely.
Jim, is this limited to just this one company?
Look, there's a larger issue at play here. When you're talking about Miami National Airport, what you're talking about is a microcosm of Miami. We are a service sector economy. We don't really produce much here. So many of our jobs are low-wage service sector jobs. You know, there was a study that just came out today that talked about the disparity between the very rich and the very poor. That disparity is at its greatest here in Miami. Only New York has a higher disparity between the two. So when you see things like that, workers at other airlines are making only $9 an hour and not getting the benefits that they deserve. Even the restaurant employees who work at the airport, they used to add automatic gratuities onto their bills because they only make $5 an hour. But now the county has struck that down, saying no more automatic tips. Mm-hmm. So the workers, the people that when you go to the airport, the people who are making that place run, they're being squeezed harder and harder.
It's a huge problem, and you're focusing on it, and we're going to hear more about this on Wednesday.
On Wednesday, there's going to be a press conference at MIA about this.
Jim, thanks a lot.
Jim, thank you very much. You can stay with CBS 4 News for the latest as this story develops. In the meantime, you can also watch Jim's full report as well as clips from the show on our website at cbsmiami.com/facing South Florida.